We go. Okay, so like you said, my name is Jason Phelps. I'm with the 3M Personal Safety Division. I'm the National Sales Manager for Fall Protection for Tools, and I'm one of 6 trainers across the U.S. right now. So currently, if you're not familiar with our line, Python was originally out of Atlanta, Georgia. Been around for about 13 years. They were purchased by Capital Safety about almost 2 years ago now. And then Capital Safety was purchased by 3M. So that's how we kind of all roll up under there. So you may have seen us called Python Safety before, DBI-SALA, and now currently our moniker is 3M DBI-SALA Fall Protection for Tools. Everybody want to repeat that? Okay, cool. So I start with a very basic question in our training, which is, are all accidents preventable? Show of hands, yes? Yep. Yeah. Well, I'm not going to tell you whether they are or whether they're not, just to try and consider perspective. This was an accident that one of our customers had a few years ago in Manhattan. They were working 60 floors up, and they dropped a sleever bar out of the window, and it hit a cab on the way down. As you can see there, that sleever bar was about 6 foot long, 32 pounds, and it went straight through the rear deck of the cab, stuck that thing into the asphalt. Luckily, nobody was hurt, right? But when they went up to talk to the guy that dropped the sleever bar out of the window about his accident, they said, was this something you could have prevented? He said, well, yeah, I could have had a second person there with me. I could have, had a better tow board. We could have not been so close to the window. A few things we could have done. Probably could have prevented it, yeah. What about when they talked to the cab driver that day about his accident? And they said, what happened? Was this something we could have prevented? Well, no. I'm just driving along. The damn thing fell out of the sky and hit my cab on the way down. What could I have done different other than not come to work today? Again, perspective. Same accident, 2 different people, 2 different perspectives, okay? Y'all might be familiar with this story here. You had a guy in New Jersey that was delivering drywall onto a job site. Steps out of his truck. He's talking on his cell phone, not wearing any PPE. Takes one step, gets hit square in the face with a tape measure. Kills him right there on the site. What I find interesting about the written story itself is the very bottom line down there that's highlighted. It says, police said that Anderson was not wearing a safety helmet. Why is that included in the story? It hit him in the face, right? Anybody here wear a hard hat with a face mask on it? Any J.J. Watt in here? No? Okay. We don't, right? So I like to think to myself, why did they include that? And the reason why is probably because the guy that wrote the story went to look up OSHA standards on dropped objects. And what he found was wear a hard hat. So obviously that contributed to this guy's death, right? Okay. So any guesses? What's the leading cause of fatalities currently in the workplace? Guesses? Falls? No, not falls anymore. There it is right there. That guy knows the stats. Automobile accidents. That's going to be your number 1 killer across all industry in the U.S. right now. Number 2, with a bullet. Violence in the workplace. Okay, that's going to be your number 2 killer across all industry. But that brings us to number 3, which is why I'm here, which is contact with objects and equipment. That encapsulates a few different things. The majority of those, about 70%, are going to be dropped objects. Okay, that's your 3rd leading killer across all industry in the workplace. And right now, number 1 and number 2 both have lots of laws, lots of regulations to mitigate those accidents, keep these things from happening, right? But number 3, which is why we're here again, there aren't any laws and there aren't any regulations. Your 3rd leading killer in the workplace right now, it's the Wild West out there. That's what we're looking at. And I know there's an OSHA guy in here somewhere. Where you at? I heard him. A few of you guys. We're working on it, right? It's something that's probably top of mind over there. And I know there's stuff going on. They're trying to fix it. So I took this directly from y'all's website. And I don't mean to call you out. I apologize. I'm sure you're used to it, though. So top line up here says, wear your hard hat. And then underneath it's a lot of ways to say, get the heck out of the way. Wear a hard hat and don't stand underneath people working at height. That's kind of where they're at right now. Okay? Do they think it's enough? No, obviously. We don't think it's enough either. So what are we going to do about that? So currently, in the last year, how many struck by falling object OSHA recordables were there? Any guesses on that number? 500? 1,000? Anybody? OSHA guy, do you know? No? 52,260 recordable incidents. That's 143 per day across the U.S. where people are hit by falling objects. Okay? How many of you guys have had issues on your site with dropped objects? I'd say at least half of you usually, probably more than that. It's something that's very common. We already prevent some objects from falling. What are those objects called? People, right? People, and we do a good job of it. You know, OSHA came along a long time ago and they said, you know, we got to stop these people from falling and dying. It's getting ridiculous out there. And so they came up with a solution. And that solution was what? Wear a harness, right? You know, and it worked. They did a good job of it. You know, falls isn't even a top 3 killer in the workplace anymore. I think last time I checked it was at number 4 or 5. And the only reason why is because residential roofers refuse to wear harnesses for some reason. I don't know. Don't know what that's all about. But when they looked at people, they said, you know what, you guys are all pretty much the same. You've all got 2 arms, 2 legs, a head, a neck, a torso. If you put a harness on and wear it correctly, you're not going to fall and die. And they were right. So what do we do about all the things we take to height? There's about 600 different things we take to height on a daily basis on all of our job sites. You know, there's not a one-size-fits-all solution for all these things you see up here. And the reason why is because they're all different sizes, they're different shapes. More importantly, they're all different functions. So what are we going to do about that? Most job sites use secondary systems. They use nets, they use hard hats, they use signage, they use barriers, things like that to try and keep people safe. None of those fix the actual issue though, right? If we look back at that little picture here with all the tools on it, how many of these things would go right through a net if they fell the right way? At least 2 or 3 of them, right? That's not even the biggest problem with nets. And we'll get to that here in a second. If nets were an effective means to stop things from falling, why would we use them for people? Be a lot more fun, right? Put big nets out underneath all the job sites. 5 o'clock, everybody just jumps down, rolls off. See you tomorrow. Right? Why wouldn't we do that? It'd be a lot cheaper too, right? Because we don't trust it. We know that that's not a safe way for people to be taken care of, right? So, currently, with people, we have primary systems in place. We have fall arrest systems. We have your harness, we have your lanyards. So we don't need a secondary system. We don't put a net underneath you if you're already wearing your stuff, right? We don't need it. But with tools, without a primary system in place, we depend on those secondary systems. This slide right here is probably the most important one I'm going to show you. This is the reason secondary systems do not work. It's about deflections. We did our testing at Georgia Southern Polytechnic University, and we dropped an 8-pound wrench, which you can see up there on the top right. We dropped an 8-pound wrench 200 feet to see what kind of deflections we could get. And at a 200-foot fall with an 8-pound wrench, we were able to deflect that wrench 419 feet sideways. Okay? When people fall, say somebody starts up here on top of a wind turbine and they fall, they hit something on the way down, they're going to conform to it, but they're generally going to end up underneath where they started, right down here on the bottom. With tools, that's not going to happen. If you hit something on the way down, what's it going to do? It's just going to shoot off in a different direction, right? Now your net was useless, right? Because it never reached the net in the first place. Okay? We talked earlier about the guy who got hit in the face with a tape measure. The reason why he got hit in the face is because the tape measure hit the truck next to him and shot straight out and hit him. Okay? It didn't slow down, it just changed direction. So this is not just a vertical issue. Dropped objects is not, you don't just have to worry about things falling out of the sky. You have to worry about them coming at you sideways. Okay? That wrench was going 81 miles an hour sideways when we tested it. An 8-pound wrench going 81 miles an hour. Okay? That's why secondary systems don't work. That's why you have to have a primary system in place to keep these from falling in the first place. This slide here is about impact force. I know it's a bit of an eye chart, but I'm going to direct you to a single slide on there. And that single slide, the single box on there is going to be the 8-pound wrench from 200 feet. It's 2,833 pounds of force per square inch. Right? I know that sounds like an obtuse number, so I'm actually going to do a little demonstration to show you guys. A demonstration here. You've seen this before, haven't you? You know what I'm going to do, right? Okay. So, everybody know what this is? Spud wrench, right? Pretty common out there in most job sites. You use it to line up holes, do other cool stuff with it. This one's about 12 ounces. It's about how much this weighs. I'm going to ask you to put your hand flat on the table for me. All right? If I were to hold this over his hand, which I'm not. If I were to hold it right over his hand and drop this from 3 feet, would this injure him? Yes. Yeah, this is less than 1 pound from 3 feet. He would have to go to probably the emergency room for a broken bone or a puncture wound. Okay? Thanks. Appreciate that. You can have your hand back. All right. So that's a quick demonstration of impact force. Now we start talking about heights. We start talking about 200 feet. This is really common down here in the ship channel. right? We get 200 feet all the time. 2,833 pounds of force per square inch, okay? I've got a couple videos here to show you things being smashed. This is my favorite part of the presentation here. So baseball helmets. If you're a baseball guy, you know that helmets are designed to withstand 98-mile-an-hour fastballs, right? That wrench just goes right through the helmet. Okay. Next one, football helmet. Nothing I love better than seeing a crimson red helmet get smashed. Any other fans in here? Yeah, I'm just saying. Coconuts. Coconuts kill 19 people annually. Pretty hard. This one's a little more applicable to most of you guys than coconuts. Traditional MSA hard hat. You'll see there, the crown just gets absolutely collapsed by that wrench. Hard hats are never tested for things falling out of the sky. That's not what they're manufactured for. It's not how they're tested. So I understand, yeah, they may help a little bit, but in most situations, no, they're not going to. So we stuck one of our interns in one of these helmets to see what would happen. You can see there it actually does deflect the wrench a little bit, but all it does is deflect the force to the back of the head and the neck. That'd absolutely be a fatal blow every time, even with a hard hat on. Okay? All right, so kind of wrap this up for you. With people, you know, we put them in a harness. What's the most granular reason you can think of we wear a harness? It's so that when you fall safely, right? You know, people have natural connection points. You can tie a rope around your waist and fall and not hit the ground. What's the problem with that? Injury, right? Break your back, you roll up around your lungs, you could suffocate, things like that. There's a lot of things that can go wrong with that. Hell, you can tie a rope around your neck and fall and not hit the ground. I wouldn't suggest it, and I'm not telling anybody in here to do that. Just saying, you could. Okay? So what we do by adding that harness and that D-ring is give you something safe to connect to, so when you fall safely, and you're able to get back to work. Okay? We took that same idea and we applied it to everything you take to height. Create a safe, solid connection point. You can see there a few examples of that. Our spud wrench, our pliers, our level. Just taking each one and creating a connection point so we have something to connect to so that when it falls, it stays connected. This is my last picture here. You guys familiar with this one? Everybody in here has seen this one, right? I like to draw attention to the guy on the far right of the picture. If you look at him, he's boozing. Right? No? That's what it would take to get me out there to do that, I promise. No. So imagine this is your team. These are your guys. They're out there working. You're the last one. You got your lunchbox. You take that step out on that I-beam. You're 800 feet off the ground in Manhattan, right? RCA building. 800 feet. You take that step out there, and you slip, and you fall. What are you thinking on the way down? Yeah, a lot of four-letter words, a lot of screaming like a little girl. That's probably me. That's what I'm going to do. But at what point on that fall do you look down at the ground and yell, "Watch out! Get small!" Or whatever it is you teach on your job site? When does that happen? It doesn't, right? Because you're not concerned about the people on the ground at that point. You're the one in danger. You're the one falling. And I don't think that's a selfish thing. That's just the reality of it. Okay, so put yourself back on that I-beam. You got your lunchbox still. And you take that first step out there, only this time when you slip, you let go of your lunchbox and regain your balance. Now your perspective changes. Now it's watch out, get small, because now your concern is the people on the ground. It's the people that you work with. You know, it's the auditors on your job site. It's the HSE guys on your job site. Guys making deliveries, whatever it is. Everyone on your job site is equally as important as the guy that's at height. You know, they want to go home to their families just the same as the guy at height. Okay? That's the difference in fall protection for people and fall protection for tools. Fall protection for people we've been doing a long time. We wear harnesses. We don't even think twice about it. Fall protection for tools is about the people you work with. Okay? Equally as important. You have the ability to close it and keep everything in there. So you can hoist this and it can swing from a crane going up and have no problem. That green tab, what it does is it aligns the handles to each other and it makes this a 10 on a 0 to 100 scale for hook and loop. But when you line up the red tabs is what you would do when you're going to put it in transit. You'd offset the handles. What you've done now is change that rating to a 100 on that scale. So you essentially have locked that hook and loop. So everything stays inside. If it were to hit on a railing, hit on a ladder, something like that, and get sideways, nothing falls out. Also on the inside of it, you can actually use it at a workstation once you get to height because it's got D-rings that line the inside along with pockets. So you can hook your lanyards to the inside of this and work out of it once you just attach this to a railing or whatever else is the anchor point. Just use it as a workstation to work out of, so you don't have anything attached to you.
They're rated for 5,000 pounds each of this?
No. This isn't fall protection for people.
Oh, okay.
So there's no regulation when it comes to but so all this has to have is basically a 2-to-1 at this point. So that's where we're at.
The rings are for the tools?
Yes.
Tools.
Yeah, so, but the bucket is rated to 100 pounds. We also have larger ones, 250-pound nylon versions. We have long buckets too. So if you have poles, if you're erecting scaffolding, things like that, we have 4-foot, 6-foot, and 10-foot long bags just like this. So that way you can put longer poles in them and get those to height safer so you're not just roping them.
Right on.
So we've got some fun stuff, man. We got some really nice options. We try and make everything safer, but make it efficient as well. You notice most of the stuff's really lightweight, so it doesn't weigh you down. Everything from our hard hat lanyard, things for your pins when you're at height. We do a lot of different stuff.
And the type and grade of the tape that you're using is specific to 3M? Or?
Well, yes, absolutely. Yeah, so our competitors do make one, but it's not been tested to our standards, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, we ended up buying a bunch of these.
Yeah.
And then the guys weren't using them, so I've asked them, I said, why aren't you using them? And they said, well, they're cumbersome, really. And I said, well, so we really need, and they failed to put the hookup system.
Yes, they didn't have the D-ring
into play, yes.
So that's a big part of it. It is a system.
It is.
You have your connection point, you have your lanyard, and then you have your transit. So how do you get the stuff around from place to place? Those three parts all work together seamlessly to keep everything 100% tied off.
So at the moment, if a tool doesn't have a hole or a handle, like a power tool or something, they don't get tethered.
But that's where this tape comes in. You can add a D to it. And then also, like most people, they'll have this attached to something on them, and this gets in the way of everything else. That's when you get something like this, so that you attach it to here. You go from your tool bag to here. Now you don't have that long cord hanging down in your way.
You don't have that. Now the drawback to this one, it is a great one, but it's a 1.5-pound max load because of the.
If you drop a tool out of your tool bag, then you still have a problem.
So if you've got it in your bag, you could have it attached to one of the D-rings in here, and then you just switch from that D-ring to your wrist inside the bucket. Take it out, work, go back and switch inside the bucket. So you're just, as long as you're working inside of here while you're switching stuff out, you're gonna be taken care of.
So cordless drill. Once you have your battery on there, you put this on there, wrap it through there. Now you have your cordless drill, and you can put it to a tether. So you put it to a tether inside the bucket. You have your bucket tied off to the scaffold or whatever. Then you have the lanyard coming out of the bucket that's attached to this, and it's all attached. So if they drop it, it's not on them, and but it's all attached to the bucket. So it keeps it from dropping all the way to the ground.
In our cases, boom lifts or scissor lifts.
Right. And you can tie that off inside the boom lift or scissor lift and work directly out of the bucket. That way you don't even have to have the wrist cuff or anything else and switch the tools off. Just work directly out of the bucket.
All right, man.
That makes it easy to pass from person to person too. You can say, this guy's done at 4 o'clock, the next shift's coming on. You hand him the bucket, it's already got everything in it.
I think your next step after this is rescue, people rescue.
Yeah, well,
people rescue is a whole different
thing.
That's
fall protection for people. So, Capital Safety's done that for years, and we teach that at the training center.
Capital?
Yeah, so he bought this, and then 3M bought both of us. So I'm a Capital guy first. I worked for the Capital Training Center, and so we have actually competent person training. We have our last pilot one March 8th. So competent person training now for fall protection is going to include fall protection for tools going forward. So when you get that certification, that'll be a part of it now. And if you've already got the full competent person, but you don't have this part yet, you can add this 4-hour course to it now and have this done on your site. You can come to the training center and get it done, but you can actually have a competent person fall protection for tools training now.
Right.
So.
Cool.